Hello and welcome to season 3 of Sustainapod, the youth-led podcast for young people and anyone interested in the world of sustainability. I'm Belinda and I'll be hosting today's episode where we'll be talking about global youth action for sustainability. Now, global refers to the interconnection of the global and the local, which is something I feel our guests today have done a really incredible job doing by bringing the Antarctic spirit home to Hong Kong to advocate and catalyze change for sustainability after they visited the remote continent. So I'm very excited to introduce Christie Lai and Justin Yeung, the co-founders of 2041 Hong Kong to Sustainapod, to share their experiences. Christie and Justin, welcome and thank you for joining me today. I'm very excited to chat with you too.
Thank you so much, Belinda, for inviting us. We're really excited to chat with you as well.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to sharing more.
So let's start from the very beginning with your own personal experiences into sustainability. What was it that really inspired you to embark on this journey in environmental space?
Yeah, since a kid, I've been wanting to become a marine biologist. My dad is a dive master, and so he's been taking me to different marine parks and also different places of the world to explore life under the water. So as I was beginning to grow up and really look into more in depth what marine biology or marine conservation is, I came across a school in Hong Kong called Li Po Chun United World College, and it's a school for IB curriculum, and so you can only enter in the last 2 years of your high school. And in the school there is a marine conservation team called coral monitoring, and so I was really interested, and so I applied for the school and I got in, and that is actually where I met Justin.
So, well, for me, I was just a regular school kid back then, to be honest, without any ambition, but without a clear career path on what I wanted to do. And I realized about the school that Christie mentioned, which is Li Po Chun World College. And that place actually was inspiring for me because I actually got the opportunity to experience living with people from around the world. And because the value of that school is peace and sustainability, and that is actually where it all began. I started learning a lot more about, what the UN SDGs are. And soon after, I just keep learning and
I love that. And you're really touching on an important point, is the importance of education and really instilling certain values when it comes to sustainable development. So we'll definitely get onto that a bit later. But I'm going to jump onto our key big topic, which I'm sure a lot of listeners are the most excited about, which is your trip to Antarctica. How did you get the opportunity?
When I was in my year 2 of university, I was still the external vice president of Ecology and Biodiversity Society. And as the external person, I'm responsible for responding to emails or, contacting people outside of the society. One day, actually towards the end of my term, I received an email from a girl called Paulina. She has been on this expedition with Sir Robert Swan, a very famous polar explorer and the founder of 2041 Foundation and this expedition. And she is recruiting a global team of students that plans to go on this expedition. And so with that global recruitment message, I actually poked Justin. I was like, hey, there's this opportunity. Do you want to apply for it? And so we both applied. And after 3 rounds of application, we were very fortunate to get in. And we were really excited about it because I would never thought that I'm gonna go to Antarctica when I was a kid. So it was really the start of our journey from that single email. And I was actually really happy because she's a very, very close mentee to Robert Swan. And so she was able to line him up on the call. And I got to hear the man himself first time. And he was so inspiring. And for me, taking this step to participate in a movement like this really means a lot because not only I'm interested in marine conservation is more of a part where I think I want to specialize in terms of the fight of climate change or protecting biodiversity. But in overall, I'm curious about how we can make a more and multilateral, holistic choice in the fight of climate change.
So my side of the story is after I graduated from high school, I went to the UK to study geography. I actually love the studying geography because it's essentially an academic subject that encompasses the interrelationships of a lot of different other things. And, actually we talk a lot about the importance of scale. Why the scale matter. So in the middle of my second year, I actually applied for the scholarship to another expedition opportunity, but that's to the Arctic region. But unfortunately, at that time, I didn't get the scholarship, and I was figuring out, okay, what do I do with my university degree afterwards? Is there any set path that I wanted to take? Any specific jobs that I wanted to do? And Christie kindly gave this expedition to me. And I just applied again, and very, very fortunate we got in together and we went on this expedition.
That's really great. So you two are the only ones representing Hong Kong on the expedition?
Well, so before we went on the trip, we didn't know if there will be any other people who will go to Antarctica from Hong Kong. We actually found out there was another member who's also from Hong Kong.
She's an Italian lady.
Yeah.
Who came to Hong Kong to start her own business. When she went on this expedition, honestly, everybody has their own little project or a little mission. And for her is to create a sound map of Antarctica.
It's great to know that there's so many diverse people that you can meet whilst traveling there. So what was the preparation process like? Because it really is not a place that you can just kind of like stroll into.
Well, yeah, I think there was a lot of uncertainty, majorly due to COVID. The expedition itself actually got postponed a few times because people weren't able to make their way to Argentina. Argentina was closed borders. And so it was really difficult to predict the time when we're actually going and the cost. And so in regards to the gears and stuff, we did our research, but also very fortunately, we got a lot of support from people who were able to help us out. One of those is Dr. Rebecca Lee, who was very, very famous in Hong Kong. She's the first woman who have been to North Pole, South Pole, and Mount Everest. So she was a really inspiring figure to me growing up, and I was able to meet her, and she told me about her experience and what I need to prepare for.
Well, another thing to mention here is definitely how do we finance our trip, because this trip is not just a normal day trip, but it's actually we're going there for a purpose, which is what we're gonna cover, which is 2041 and the Antarctica Spirit. So to actually be able to go on to this trip, we need to fundraise. We need to finance it ourselves. So a majority of the effort would be how do we align this mission and the meaning of this purpose of this expedition to a larger audience, to corporates, to organizations, to friends, to families. How do we get their buy-ins into, supporting us to do this meaningful thing that is this trip and 2041 Hong Kong. So again, we were very, very fortunate enough to, get some of the support from some of the largest corporations in Hong Kong. And with regarding to the gears, we got actually full gear sponsored by Arcturix, and which is actually quite aligned with the sustainability journey as well. And and obviously, Chrissy also mentioned about COVID, right? We had to do a lot of preparation for COVID because a few days before we actually left for Hong Kong to the southernmost city in Argentina, we need to make sure that we don't get COVID, or else, all the fundraising efforts will be gone. All the support, it will be a waste. And actually, there are people who actually got COVID before the expedition and didn't get on board on the Ocean Victory to Antarctica. So that was a little bit unfortunate.
Wow, I'm so glad you guys made it. And so when you got to Argentina and you boarded this boat, what was the whole process for actually getting to Antarctica? Like, how long did that take?
So we took a flight to Turkey, Istanbul, and then we had to take another flight to Sao Paulo, and then another flight to Buenos Aires, capital of Argentina. And then we had to take another flight to the southernmost city, Ushuaia. So the entire journey took around 3 days. 3 days of journey, 50 plus hours, I believe. And that was very tiring, but obviously very rewarding.
From Argentina, from Ushuaia, we on board the Ocean Victory, and then we had to go through 48 hours of very, very angry body of water. It's called the Drake Passage, and the Drake Passage itself like normally on the average height, it's 7 to 10 meter wave. And then if you're lucky enough, it would maybe get 3 meters. But if you're very, very unlucky and unfortunate, then maybe you see scenes like the Poseidon movies, you get 20-meter waves. And you can find these videos on the YouTube, and it's absolutely real. And I was really seasick on my way there. The advice I got was to sleep the whole way. Yeah. And so like it took us 48 hours by boat to finally get to the continent. And the first glimpse, it's I mean, I was really, really speechless.
Well, to me, crossing the Drake Passage, I was so excited to actually experience how it was like back in the days when ocean explorers just on board on a wooden boat and they just cross the Pacific, Atlantic Ocean. And I was actually so excited to see the 20 meters waves. I personally had a sailing background, so I enjoyed the whole journey from one place to another using purely wind energy. But this boat, Ocean Victory, is actually one of the less carbon intense cruise line. So very happy to be on board of this boat and actually a quite safe journey to Antarctica.
One of the points that was really interesting and really cool is that on our way there at a certain latitude, if you just stop the boat there and you go sideways, you can go around the world without like hitting any land. So it's just pure sea. And in fact, that spot has a very high ecological significance because that's where the upwelling happens. And a lot of birds actually feed off the fish from there. A lot of sea mammals gather around there. And so it's a very magnificent place to be. So along the journey, we actually learned so much about the ecology, but also about how our Earth and the system that goes within is so magically complex and just very overwhelming.
My expectation when I first arrived at Antarctica, I was expecting, a very beautiful view. If you search online Antarctica, you will see those very, very cool pictures. But to be honest, when we actually catch the first glimpse of Antarctica, it was very, very underwhelming. It was like, oh, wow, that's Antarctica. But again, this is what it is. It's nature. We never know what's going to happen there. And not to mention that the weather there changes a lot and very often.
Wow, I just think that really encapsulates how it's really the journey, not just the destination that counts, because I think the whole effort of getting there and everything you guys shared about what you learned and experience is also part of the whole narrative. It's not just about getting there. So throughout the whole period of time that you were exploring Antarctica, then what was the most memorable experience or memory that you had?
Well, to me, I think the most memorable thing is definitely the landscape itself, because I see geography, I touched upon geological stuff. So I actually was just so amazed by how this purely white continent is just covered with snow, icebergs just floating around. And in geography, learn about those layers of ice, and actually to see it in person really correlate with my studies in university and how scientists figure out how the past climate and atmosphere in that particular region is like. And obviously, another memorable experience for me is definitely to see the wildlife there, being able to see penguins and whales just fluking, swimming around. It's just amazing to observe.
Adding on to the penguin, I feel like penguin has really become my spiritual animal after coming back, because not only they're so clumsy, it became my daily entertainment to look at them. Just seeing them tripping over, seeing them just after they get out of the water, flapping their wing, like they're just running around like a headless chicken. And then it's just really funny of see like how different penguin individuals have different personality, and it really shows. They're very simple-minded creatures. For example, when we were landing on a certain island and we were hiking up, we saw that a lot of the penguins make their way up to a higher altitude above sea level. And we were wondering why, because you imagine penguins like to be on the shore and they like to like just dive in and out. And it turns out that because the ice calving, so like different ice shelf collapsing, and so it induces a tsunami. And so like the water would suddenly have like giant waves and flood certain coastlines. And so their mission every day is to, like, after hunting, they will come up and then they will try to make their way up to a higher position. And even though they're tired, even though they trip over, they will still stand up and keep going. And then when I witnessed that, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is definitely a spirit we should learn. And besides the penguins, there was this moment that was really a wake-up call. When we were in another site, while we were hiking, we heard a very, very loud bang. It wasn't really a bang, it more sounds like a crack, like a very loud explosion in a sense. I remember hearing it and I was like, wow. It's also because there's nothing, there's no sound around us, it's just nature. And so suddenly to hear that loud, that high volume of sound, and knowing that it comes from the ice shelf, maybe the inner parts of the glacier, is really haunting. It's really frightening to hear that.
And also, there's just too many memorable moments. And one thing that I absolutely forgot to mention was one of the favorite picture of the trip I took there. It was a very beautiful, unpredictable sunset. Shameless plug. If you go on our Instagram, you will see a very, very nice sunset picture. And that was the story behind is absolutely amazing. So it was actually the first day we arrived in Antarctica.
So the underwhelming scene that Justin mentioned.
It was mysterious. It was foggy. It was cloudy. There was a little bit of raining, a little bit of snowing. And by the way, Antarctica is not supposed to rain that often, which we actually experienced. It was mysterious. We really couldn't see afar, but we went down on the deck, and then 30 minutes later, there was a very beautiful, crystal clear sunset, and it gives us a ray of hope. A glimpse of sunlight. Just couldn't really describe it.
That sounds so incredible. I'm like picturing as you speak all the emotions and the views that you guys have, and wow, it really is such a once in a lifetime experience, and I'm so glad that you guys are here and able to share that with one. So what do you think was the most unexpected part of the trip in terms of being in Antarctica? Because a lot of people, as you mentioned, think of it as a very pristine, untouched, almost permanent landscape. And as we all know, Antarctica is very much a place that's being affected by climate change and a whole other range of environmental issues. Is there something that you were really surprised by?
Well, what I'm going to say doesn't have a lot of depth, but like one of the more unexpected side of things is the smell of the penguin poop. It's a unique smell. Like you would never ever forget. If I sleep at night and I smell it, I will wake up immediately and be like, whoa, that's a penguin right there. That's more towards the sensory side of things. But in terms of like memory, I guess raining wasn't really in the expectation, because I wasn't really expecting extreme weather in Antarctica, mainly because obviously the photos that we see seem to have great weather, great light. Some of the days we were there was a storm and it was raining really heavily. And when there's rain and snow and 30 knots of wind coming into your face, it's not pleasant at all. It almost feels like there are needles coming to you, and it's absolutely abnormal to have snow at this time. Wind wise, it's normal because it's the windiest continent, but the precipitation was really unexpected and was a huge alarm as well, because Antarctica is a desert. It doesn't rain, and when we were there, it rained for 3 days in a row. So you would imagine what's going to be like if we are not there. Like, how was it like for the rest of the year? And it's quite worrying because precipitation ultimately changes the nature of the habitat. And so it could induce a lot of change in the habitat itself and affect the food chain.
Yeah, for me, because we were in Antarctica in March, so it's winter time. There's supposed to be a lot of icebergs coming out, sea ice forming, but there was actually none. That is a big piece of it.
Thanks for sharing that. It really, I feel like I talk about the memories that you guys have forever. We're gonna swiftly move on to talk about 2041 Hong Kong, which is your lovely organization. We'll be discussing all about 2041 Hong Kong in our next episode, so stay tuned for part 2 of our conversation with Christie and Justin next time. Thank you for tuning in this week with us. As always, we would love to hear from you about this episode, so let us know any questions and comments by messaging us on Instagram at sustainapod_GIH or email us at sustainapod@gmail.com. See you next time.